Imagine waking up one morning to find out that every imported product you rely on, from your car to your smartphone, just got significantly more expensive. That's exactly what millions of Americans and businesses worldwide are now facing as former President Donald Trump declares April 2nd as Liberation Day. But who, exactly, is being liberated? And at what cost? Trump's new tariffs are not just about economic policy, they are a declaration of trade war. The implications stretch far beyond U.S. borders, sparking fierce reactions from key allies like Canada and the European Union. But are they ready to face the challenge? And what does this mean for the global economy? At the heart of Trump's policy is the concept of imposing reciprocal tariffs, which his administration claims are meant to mirror the tariffs that other countries place on American goods. However, the reality is far more expansive, with measures that extend well beyond simple economic fairness. A key component is the 25% tariff on all foreign manufactured cars, a move intended to revitalize domestic car production but one that could significantly disrupt global automakers, particularly those operating in Canada, Mexico, Germany, and Japan. In addition, a sweeping 20% tariff will be applied to a wide range of imported goods, affecting up to $3 trillion in annual U.S. imports and driving up costs for American consumers. Further reinforcing these policies, the administration is also intensifying its stance on steel and aluminum imports by maintaining 25% tariffs, a decision that will likely raise production costs for industries that depend on these materials. Financial markets reacted swiftly and negatively, with increased volatility and concerns over inflation, potential job losses, and declining corporate profits. But perhaps most critically, these tariffs have ignited an international backlash, with America's key trading partners preparing to retaliate. The global response: allies or adversaries? For years, Trump has positioned himself as a fighter for American jobs. But will these aggressive trade measures achieve that goal, or will they backfire? The world is watching closely, and U.S. trading partners are not taking this lying down. Canada, caught in the crossfire. Canada, America's closest neighbor and second-largest trading partner, was among the first to respond, swiftly condemning the tariffs as an unjustified economic attack. Prime Minister Mark Carney did not mince words, denouncing the measures as an unjustified economic assault on Canadian sovereignty and vowing a firm response. Almost immediately, Ottawa announced a series of countermeasures, including retaliatory tariffs on key U.S. exports such as agricultural products, industrial machinery, and consumer electronics. At the same time, Canadian businesses, wary of increasing dependence on an unpredictable U.S. trade policy, have accelerated efforts to diversify their economic partnerships, strengthening trade ties with Europe and Asia to cushion the impact of American restrictions. Beyond the economic battlefield, the tariffs have also sent shockwaves through Canada's political landscape. After years of declining public support, the ruling Liberal Party has experienced a resurgence, as a wave of national unity emerges in the face of what many see as U.S. economic aggression. Public opinion, once divided, is now rallying behind the government, reinforcing a renewed sense of Canadian sovereignty and determination. Mexico, a more cautious approach. Unlike Canada, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has chosen a more diplomatic strategy, favoring negotiations over outright retaliation. Mexico's strategy. Direct negotiations. Mexican officials have been in talks with U.S. trade representatives to secure exemptions for key industries such as automotive and agriculture. Strengthening alternative trade alliances. Mexico is expanding its economic ties with countries in Latin America, Europe, and Asia to cushion the blow of potential economic fallout. Border trade disruptions. Despite efforts to minimize impact, Mexican border cities like Ciudad Juarez have already seen significant disruptions, with cargo trucks stalled and businesses struggling to adapt. The European Union, a power struggle. The European Union, another major target of Trump's trade war, has not remained silent in the face of these escalating tensions. European leaders have strongly condemned the tariffs, calling them a reckless move that threatens global economic stability. Determined to protect its economy, the EU has announced a series of countermeasures designed to push back against U.S. policies. One of the most immediate responses has been the imposition of targeted tariffs on key American exports, with European officials singling out products such as bourbon, motorcycles, and agricultural goods, industries that hold political and economic significance in the United States. Beyond direct economic retaliation, the EU is also preparing to challenge the legality of these measures on the global stage. Officials have warned that the new U.S. tariffs may violate international trade agreements and have threatened to take the case to the World Trade Organization. setting the stage for a prolonged legal battle. At the same time, Europe is taking steps to strengthen its economic resilience by forging deeper trade ties with other global players. Seeking to reduce its reliance on the U.S. market, the EU has intensified negotiations with China and other major economies, looking to expand trade agreements and shift economic alliances in response to Washington's aggressive stance. The UK, seeking special treatment. The United Kingdom, already facing economic uncertainty post-Brexit, has chosen diplomacy over retaliation, prioritizing negotiations to secure exemptions from the new U.S. tariffs. British officials are particularly focused on protecting the automotive sector, where disruptions could have serious consequences for the economy. At the same time, the UK is positioning itself as a mediator in the growing trade conflict between the US and the EU. By maintaining strong ties with both sides, Britain aims to minimize economic fallout while using its diplomatic influence to encourage dialogue. However, this balancing act is challenging, as shifting alliances and competing interests complicate its role. The success of this strategy will depend on the US's willingness to grant concessions and the UK's ability to maintain credibility as a neutral broker. China, the sleeping giant awakens. China, a longtime target of Trump's economic policies, is carefully monitoring the situation and preparing its response. Unlike other nations reacting quickly, Beijing is known for its strategic patience, and any countermeasures will likely be calculated for maximum impact. One immediate option is imposing steep tariffs on American agricultural products, which would hit U.S. farmers, an important political base for Trump. In past disputes, China has targeted imports like soybeans and pork, and a similar strategy could be expected here, putting pressure on rural economies across the U.S. Beyond tariffs, China controls the global supply of rare earth minerals, crucial for industries ranging from tech to defense. Limiting exports of these materials could disrupt American tech and military sectors, forcing companies to seek alternatives. Another potential move is devaluing the yuan, which would make Chinese exports cheaper and help maintain the competitiveness of its manufacturing sector despite U.S. tariffs. Although China hasn't officially revealed its actions yet, history shows that when it does respond, it does so decisively, and the consequences could shake global markets. The big picture: what happens next? The world is entering uncharted territory, where trade policy is no longer just about economics, it's about power, political leverage, and reshaping the global order. Trump's tariffs are being framed as a way to bring jobs back to America, but the reality is much more complex, with far-reaching effects that extend beyond U.S. borders. One immediate consequence for American consumers will be rising prices, as the cost of imported goods increases. From cars to electronics to everyday household items, inflationary pressures will only intensify. Meanwhile, the U.S.'s biggest trading partners, Canada, Mexico, the European Union, and China, are preparing retaliatory measures that could make it harder for American companies to compete internationally. These tariffs could disrupt industries that rely on cross-border supply chains, potentially hurting U.S. exporters. While certain domestic sectors, such as steel, aluminum, and automotive manufacturing, may see short-term benefits, the broader economic impact remains uncertain. Inflation, market instability, and reduced consumer spending could easily outweigh any potential gains, leaving the U.S. economy vulnerable. Perhaps the most significant consequence of these policies is the shift they are causing in global trade relationships. As allies and partners insulate themselves from U.S. economic pressure, new alliances are emerging, and alternative trade routes are being explored. If this trend continues, the U.S. may find itself increasingly isolated, losing influence over a global economy it once dominated. Is this the dawn of a new era of American economic strength? Or is Liberation Day the beginning of a global trade war with disastrous consequences? The only certainty is uncertainty. The coming months will reveal whether Trump's gamble pays off, or if it will leave the U.S. economy, and its global standing, weaker than ever. Stay tuned as we continue to monitor the fallout from these historic policy changes. Let us know in the comments, do you think Trump's tariffs will help or hurt America in the long run? And how do you think the world should respond? Let's discuss.